Hello and welcome to the Indie Brew, a new series where I sit down with some amazing indie developers and talk all about their game dev journeys. In today's episode, I chat to Joe, the very talented dev behind Floramancer, a cozy apocalypse game that sees you mix farming with magic, growing your own spells to take on the epic boss battles. So grab a cup of your preferred caffeinated beverage and let's hear from Joe. So let's kick this off with my favorite question. What is your preferred caffeinated beverage?
I used to be a strictly tea guy for probably a decade there, and now I'm fully onto at least a cup of coffee in the morning, if not two.
Yeah.
So I've upgraded my caffeine game.
I feel like it's necessary when you're working on games or content or anything like that. You've got to have something a little bit extra. So how did you get into game development?
Well, always loved video games since I was a kid. Even when I was very little, I would, when somebody asked what I wanted to be, I would say I want to make video games. And then, you fall off it in life as you go to college and everyone tells you that's not a real thing. You can't do that.
Yep.
And then after college, I realized I was just like watching a lot of Netflix and movies and just decided to pick it up. I have a buddy who made an app, like an infinite runner kind of thing. And that kind of opened, showed me that it is possible for someone to just on their laptop start programming video games.
Yeah. It's so crazy to think, because I was the same growing up. It's like it's like a pipe dream. It's like, nah, I can't do that. Like, that's too hard. And then now it's like we're seeing kind of all these up and coming indie devs. And I think that's why we're seeing so many, because people are realizing, hold on, actually, no, I can do that. Like I can, this is achievable. It's so cool to see so many people have the same kind of story as well. Like, I didn't think I could do it, and now I realized I can. It's so fun. So what were your favorite games growing up?
I was a huge fan of the PlayStation 2, like the third-person platforming era, like Jack and Dexter, like Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
Those kind of games were really, where you get to explore a world, really caught me on to like, okay, this is something special. This isn't just a game.
Yeah. And do you think they influenced you as a developer?
Well, I haven't made a 3D platformer, probably because I hold those kind of games so close to my heart that I know I would drive myself crazy trying to create one myself. But probably, I mean, if I didn't catch that, that bug of loving video games back then, I probably wouldn't have pushed through making them now and learning to.
Yeah, for sure. And are you full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Yeah. So how is that, managing part-time dev? And do you work full-time, or you obviously have other income sources as well?
Yeah, definitely other income sources. It's not too bad. I mean, I don't have the, I'm privileged in having enough time after work that it's not, one of those jobs that bleed into, you going home and then actually just working more or whatever. So I do have full-on free time after work, which helps a ton.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as it is for some indie developers.
Yeah.
Who are like, they go to work and then they come home and then they have more work and then they squeeze in an hour of making a game.
Yeah. Has it been a struggle, like balancing, prioritizing your game, but also keeping up with work?
I mean, it's not easy. There is definitely times where a feature takes longer than expected. And then you got to think of like, do I squeeze it in? Where do I squeeze it in my week? And if it's worth it to sacrifice sleep for, it could definitely be a challenge. I mean, the amount of available time is really what dictates the quality of a game for me, at least at this point. Eventually I'll be able to have other programmers to help spread the load out.
Yep. All right. So tell me about Floramancer. How was that born?
Okay. Well, me and my fiance had just played the game Moonlighter, if you've played that one. And instantly from playing it, I did want to make something along the lines of Moonlighter. It was a really, really cool game. And then she had just said, what about a game where you grow spells? Which is like pretty much the wholesome Floramancer.
Yep.
And then that's where it started. And then I started programming, started coming up with a bunch of ideas, a lot of which got cut because they weren't as fun as I had imagined them in my head.
Yep.
And then what was left after is Floramancer.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so obviously Moonlight inspired the game. Was there any other games that you drew inspiration from?
Yeah, definitely. If I can track them down. Well, Moonlighter was the first source in coming up with the idea of leaving home and gathering seeds and then coming back and then leaving a home, and the cycle of it I really like.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of games that I would play that don't seem like they would be inspirations, but I would play them and see how they did something better than I had initially.
Yep.
Like I actually got I used to have the enemies spawn over time around the player, which was a little anxiety inducing because you just want to like take care of a plant and then suddenly you're attacked from the side. So I saw how I was playing the God of War and discovered that they spawn them by distance. Like you have to walk forward in a new section to spawn them.
Yep.
And then that kind of showed me like, okay, I'm going about spawning the enemies wrong. So a lot of random sources that weren't directly related.
Yep. That's so cool. I always love the abstract thinking. And it's like, oh, wait, no, I got this from this completely random thing, but it worked. And how long did it take you to develop the game?
Just about 2 years, a little under 2 years.
That's pretty impressive for part-time, I'll be honest.
Well, it wasn't just me. I do have 2 artists that
Yeah.
work with me. Yeah, if I was doing the art also, it would be.
And what were some of the challenges that you think you faced during the development?
Some of the challenges were probably trying a lot of stuff initially and then cutting some of the features
Yeah.
that took, an effort to put in, realizing like I'm noticing that parts of the game don't actually add anything to it. And then you gotta, comment out or delete a section of code that you just worked on for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's tough to get yourself to get that done.
Yeah. And what was it like realizing? Like, how did you kind of realize when that was happening, when you knew, hold on, I got to cut this? Like, what was that
Yeah.
process like?
Well, at least for me, I think some people might be able to see it earlier than I do, but usually I fully finish it before I realize like this isn't adding anything to the experience. Like you used to be able to like prepare the grounds with like a hoe, you can like dig up and make
Yeah.
better and fertilizer. And I realized it was just pressing a button for for no extra like strategy or it didn't add to the game at all. And I had to
Yeah.
cut that. I had the idea initially, like the second idea of the game was that it was going to procedurally crossbreed the spells together, make like unique flowers. And that I was pretty convinced would be the main point of the game.
Yep.
But after getting it in there, it was kind of, maybe there is a way to do it and I could try it. But when I had done it, I realized, oh, this is just no fun.
Yeah.
It's not as interesting as I thought it would be.
Yeah. No, I could see how that's an interesting idea thinking about it. I'm like, I could see how that could fit. But then in practice, often those ideas don't necessarily work the way we hope.
Yeah.
I know I'm the same with like video ideas. I'll be like, yes, I've got this amazing idea. And then I'll do it. And I'll be like, this is not it. Okay. So we talked about some of the challenges. What about some of the highlights?
Well, some big moment was we had a release party with, my friends there. And that was extremely fun. There was like Floramancer written out in balloons.
Yeah.
Was pretty awesome. Getting the game trailer posted by IGN was something I really didn't expect to come in or get indie gaming. So all of those moments were great. Also getting the procedural generation to function was a pretty great moment because it was coming in as like incorrectly. It was coming in as like kind of white static where it's supposed to be make organic shapes.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one line of code I had written incorrectly. And it took me so long to figure it out that I think I like threw my hands up into the air in joy when I finally got it to function.
Yeah. Oh, that's like such a good moment when you finally figure out what it was.
Yeah.
Now, did you self-publish the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what was that process like? Because I know there's a lot of chatter in the industry about publishing deals being awful at the moment. So what was it like self-publishing?
It's time consuming, very
Yep.
time consuming. I mean, if I were to publish the game to consoles, I would probably go with another service. For
Yeah.
the same reason that it took a lot of time. On top of the marketing, which is like also extremely time consuming,
Yeah.
I had to figure out how Steamworks functions, how the Steam page works and, how to get a bank account set up for the game. A lot of stuff that, I mean, none of it was insanely difficult, just a lot of small steps that are hard to become large when stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. What made you decide to self-publish?
What made me decide to self-publish? I guess I just didn't, coming in this, I've made games in the past, like smaller web games or iOS, but I guess a game like this, I felt like I didn't have enough credit in the full-on, a full Steam game world to get a publisher deal that would have been fair.
Yep.
I didn't have enough, at least I perceived it was, I didn't have enough proof that I could do it to
Mm.
get a deal that wasn't slightly or majorly in their favor.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fair. And you're happy with how the publishing went? Like, you're happy with that decision?
Yeah, definitely. I think it would have added a lot of, stress and maybe rushing and crunch to the game if there was somebody else's deadline and
Yep.
finances on the line as well.
Yep.
So it would have definitely come out a different game had I went with somebody else.
Yeah, so it gave you a lot more freedom to kind of develop it how you wanted to without that pressure. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like the debate of whether or not to go with a publisher, I think
Mm.
is something a lot of people consider. But that's so cool that you got to develop it at your own kind of pace without the deadline, I guess. So tell me about the lead up to launch. Did you have the game fully ready before you decided on a launch date?
Pretty close to it. There was art that I would have me and the artist have different, acceptable levels of quality. So I
Yeah.
had, a game that I would have been very happy to publish, but the artist wanted to put finishing touches on their pieces and make it perfect. But I had enough that to know that if something went wrong, I could publish it earlier and be proud of
Yeah.
the result. So about a month before I had something that I could call it finished and be happy with.
Yeah. And so did you decide on your release date at that point, or did you have, like, a release date in mind already from way back?
I think I announced the release date in January or maybe December.
Yep.
So there was a bit there,
Yep.
a couple months where I was like, the game's not finished, and I could see the release date on my calendar that were pretty intense. But luckily, I had a version I would be happy to put out in the world about a month beforehand, and
Yeah.
then a free month to work on little quality of life parts and fix bugs.
Yep. Yeah, that's so good. And how did you stay motivated through the development process? Did you set yourself deadlines along the way, or did you kinda just go with the flow?
Well, it's definitely not easy, especially the first, like, when you get to a third or halfway through the game and you could see out how far you have to go.
Yep.
That's probably a third to halfway is when you get hit. It's a little punch in the gut when you realize, like, oh man, that's probably where it's hardest to be motivated. But I kept going because, I wanted to get with the Steam page out, they expect a certain quality. And then with the trailer, I have to have finished art. Then a demo, I have to have a finished half of a game. So I just kept working from one necessary goal to the next.
Yep. That's such a cool way of looking at it. And now that the game is out, how does it feel?
It feels pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very nice to have it out. There's still a lot more to do in like that. Now I have, I was getting feedback from playtesters and people I've given the game to for free, but now there's just like a fire hose of feedback coming in and makes it clear what I can do to improve the game. Like coming soon, I'm gonna do a cozy mode and a hardcore mode.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing some people play, some people beat the game in an hour and a half, and some people only be halfway through in 8 hours. And I realized that, there's a wide range of what people want from their experience there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think I played through it pretty quick because I wanted to get the review. I was like, I want to, find out the story and that kind of thing. But I
Mhm.
think I probably was in the 1.5 hours, like to kind of push through it.
Yeah.
But you could definitely take your time. Absolutely. Absolutely. You could definitely spend 8 hours just exploring and making your garden look nice. And how have you managed? So, obviously, you've spoken a little bit about feedback, but how have you managed with other feedback from people purchasing the game?
I try to see like even the negative stuff as a way forward to make the game better for a wider range of people. It's after doing this, it's definitely where I could see why games have an easy, medium, or hard mode, or some modern games call them what they call like you choose like play for the story or play for a challenge or something like
Yeah.
that. So through that feedback, I could see how I can improve the game for people I didn't necessarily see the needs for when I first launched the game.
So, you think rather than seeing it like, oh no, they don't like my game, it's like, oh no, there's people out there that are different to the people I thought were going to play it. Yeah. That's a
There
cool
you
way to
go.
look at it. Yeah. So, taking that as an opportunity rather than a hit to the gut.
Yeah, you try to.
That's so cool. So you've spoken a little bit about upcoming things that you're going to add to the game, but what
Mhm.
else have you got on the cards? Are you planning more updates for Floramancer? Are you planning something completely different?
Well, for the time being, I have the cozy mode and hardcore mode for Floramancer, and I also have a new enemy and a new spell seed flower type that I'm definitely going to put in the game. See what feedback comes after that and see what needs to be updated. And then we have plans for starting our next launch or potentially two games
Yeah.
we're thinking about making. I can't wait to open up the next project.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Um,
you must be excited to start something totally different.
yeah, yeah. Towards the end of a project, you have so many things plugged into each other that it's gets more difficult over time to add features without breaking older ones.
Yeah.
So seeing a fresh project with nothing in it is going to be extremely refreshing.
Yeah. That's so cool. All right. And last question. Do you have any advice for other indie devs?
Yeah, for like people just starting,
Yeah, people just starting or people in the thick of developing a game.
either of them, I would say try your best to find people. Like a huge step was finding artists that I like working with and communicating with, and other developers who they didn't work on the project, but I can ask them their opinions on things, and finding a group was a massive step forward because otherwise making games in a vacuum is very tough as you forget to without a reference. It's hard to see if you're even small variables like or if your player's like too fast or too slow, you don't necessarily see it if it's just you without a reference. And as soon as you see someone play it or another developer comment, you think, yeah, that should have been obvious the whole time.
Yeah.
So without a group, you're somewhat blinded. And once you can find those people, it becomes way easier to see the way forward.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think absolutely. I've noticed something specific about indie devs. Most of the time, they are so like help each other out. Like everyone is so like giving and welcoming, and it's like there's no like gatekeeping or anything like that. It's like it's such a I don't know, such a nice community, and everyone seems to support everyone else. Is really really great to see. But it's cool that it goes beyond just reposting something on Twitter. It's like, no, you can actually like ask other people questions and it's good. Well, thank you so much for taking
Thank
some
you.
time out of your day to chat with me. It's been great hearing a bit more about your journey and how Floramancer came to life. And I'm so excited to see what's coming next. I will be eagerly awaiting updates on what your new games are. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Indie Brew. If you want to know more about Floramancer, all of the links will be in the description below, so make sure to go and check it out and add it to your wish list. Until next time, stay caffeinated.